All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Wisdom and Wealth. I got somebody who's pretty good today. All right, Chad Gundersen, executive producer, co-creator of the TV series The Chosen. Pretty legit. Ever heard of it? All right. So, well, it turns out I love this. This is where when we get talking about the mindset for money or for wealth, this is a big one. Okay. I go to church with this guy. All right. I had no idea he was one of the masterminds behind this whole thing. And I even remember like his wife Amanda serving us at children's ministry and her coming up to us at Trophy Club pool. And I had, this lady in a bikini walking up to me like, hello. And at first it freaked me out because I didn't know who it was.
You never know. You never know at the pool. You got to be careful.
But we have so many amazing people like under our nose walking around, and this is one of those guys. And so I'm super excited to have you on and get to learn a little bit about you and the experience of walking through this whole Chosen series. And you're awesome.
I appreciate it.
Your wife's awesome, and thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure to get to know you and your family over the years. Your wife, who's way smarter than you. She, and again, but that's one of those surprises, right? Like I remember when we
were smarter than me.
Well, no, that was an easy. I could just tell by looking, but no, it was more of a, with what she does, right? And just this amazing skill set that she has. And when we found ourselves in this desire, of wills and, and all these different things that we were doing, we were just like, we have this, again, it's that resource right there to go. And she was just so amazing to walk us through that whole process because that's those. I like to say, look, I love to find people way smarter than me because then it just makes me look smart. That I at least made a good choice. And as a leader for a long time, it's kind of all I've ever done. It's kind of been one of my mantras, right? Just find people smarter than me and surround myself with them. And that's you and your family, man. But it's been a blessing to know you guys already. So,
man, I appreciate.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, heck yeah. No, I always say I'm like when people find that out about Megan. I say she's not just for looks, man. I don't marry just for looks.
Come on.
It.
But my wife's the same way. She has a degree in accounting, and she's just, every now and then and it's funny because I build budgets for the shows that we do, and sometimes tens of millions of dollars, and I'll build these budgets for these shows and do these things, and then I laugh and say, yeah, but my wife won't let me touch our finances at home because I'm not smart enough to figure that stuff out. So, but again, I'm blessed. I married up for sure. So,
I'll take it. Well, I always respected those guys more.
That's right.
Like, all right, you're good at something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they just play it as it plays, right?
Right, yeah, play it as it plays. Come on, shooter. I love it. Well, dude, let's start this. All right, everybody knows about Chosen right now, but and you got into this Christian production, into this business. Like, what started off? Like, what was the foundation in your childhood that like led to this?
Sure. Yeah.
To even come into this type of business.
Yeah. So honestly, never. I'm not one of those filmmakers that like the Steven Spielberg I shot with my Super 8 camera when I was a kid, when I was 5 years old, and did all these things. But what I can say is you can definitely look at kind of the path that God kind of leads you down in order to get you where you're going. So I grew up in Roanoke, Texas, small town Texas thing, did all the normal high school things, played high school football, of course, because that's what you do. And even went on to the next level. I played in college for a while and went out to California to play. Pomona College is where I started. Pomona, little D3 school out in California.
It's like Pomona cheese.
Yeah, right. So, and it's part of the Claremont colleges. It's one of those, it was great because living where I was living, you were less than an hour to the beach and less than an hour to the slopes. So you could go skiing and literally go to the beach in the same day. And so it was an amazing experience, and ended up playing volleyball there as well. So I ended up playing 2 sports there. And sports medicine is where I wanted to go. Getting out of high school, going to med school was
that was my goal. The Andrews podcast.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it just caught my eye. I'm like, I'll listen to this guy, right? So, and so it was just that was always the goal, and loved it, and was very good, and I was a biology major, heading down this whole pre-med path, and it even kind of started in college in that freshman year because I only played 1 year, and it was just one of those big. I'd say there's 2 different things that when I heard from the Lord very distinctly as a young man by myself, not relying on my parents' faith or a pastor or anything like that. And those two things were, first of all, quitting sports in college, and then deciding to go into film. Right. Because so when I quit football, oddly enough, the money disappears when you don't play sports anymore. And so had to come. Yeah, right. It was like, what do you mean? Like, I can't just stay. So came back to Texas after that. My brother was down at Texas A&M, and I had already been accepted to A&M, but obviously chose to go in there, not to play football, but just to go there. And then oddly enough, I was a transfer student at that point, not a new student. And I literally was one credit shy to be able to transfer down to A&M. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just go to a local college around here in the DFW area. And, for a semester or two, and then I'll transfer down there to A&M. Well, I ended up at the University of North Texas up here. Had a lot of friends going there. And so I was like, oh, okay, it's a cool little school. Well, my first semester there at UNT, I got cast in like 4 of the student films as an actor. And I had done a lot of theater in high school. I'd done some print work. I did a couple of commercials, but never really thought of filmmaking as a career, like not even as an actor. I just kind of did it because I just liked it. Like I was the jock that left practice and went to, put my tights on and do theater, right? That's just what I did in high school and just kind of loved it and dug it.
Tights.
Yeah, exactly. I had no fear. I just left my football pants on, right? Just took the pads out and you were good to go. But even working at a movie theater in high school, right here in Grapevine, there used to be an old Movies 8 right over here, and I worked at that movie theater in high school. So there's all these little things that you kind of look back and go, okay, well, that was just kind of God preparing me for these things. So when I moved it to UNT, got cast in all those films, that was kind of that wake up call, kind of going, wait a minute, there's something to this. And even when I was in California, I was an extra in a couple of really big movies out there in Hollywood, just a guy in the crowd, sort of thing. And I just remember sitting there kind of going, people do this for a living. And again, small Texas town kid, you don't think about that. Oh, this is what people do as a filmmaker. Even working at movie theaters, that's just not what goes through your brain, small Texas town. And that's when God just kind of started moving things towards this film industry. So I stayed a biology major. I stayed at UNT. They have a good kinesiology and all the different things. So I stayed a biology major all the way to my senior year. And my senior year is when God's like, you going to do this or what are you waiting on? Right. And so I remember going to my parents going, okay, remember when I quit football and you guys were like, well, okay, that's what you want. Well, now I'm not going to be a doctor anymore. I want to be a filmmaker. And praise God, I had pretty amazing parents that just kind of went, all right, well, this is what, sort of thing. And so I started my first company in college. My senior year, I started a company called Night and Day Films, and we just started doing music videos for local bands and corporate videos and commercials for mom and pop shop type stuff. And even at that point, I didn't even know I wanted to be a producer. I mean, it's funny. I've been doing this for over 25 years. And I always say, look, as a producer, my mom still doesn't know what I do for a living. Exactly. Like, what does a producer do? Yeah. Which there's a great story behind that. Remind me, we'll come back to that one. And so as we started this company, because I was an actor and voiceover and all these different things, the guy that I partnered with, he was kind of the writer director type thing. And I do a lot of creative stuff, but I'm not a writer and I've never wanted to be a director, but definitely a creative producer. And so when we started this company, I was the guy, holding the thing and the voice on the commercial and the hand model, all those things. And these are beautiful. Yeah.
They're elite.
Blue steel. I'll give it to you. And so literally our company didn't have kind of that leader thing. And that's where it kind of came in, where this, like I said, just I've always been and wanted to be a leader that people want to follow, not a leader that's dragging people behind them. Yeah. Screaming, follow me. I'm the boss. I'm always the quiet guy in the corner, and people just choose to follow me. Praise God for that. Because obviously now I lead hundreds, if not thousands of people. And so that's what kind of got me into the producing, is that we basically didn't have one. We didn't have a boss of the company. And so I just kind of became that. And that's when I just started realizing this is where you surround yourself with smarter people than you are. Like, I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, don't ask me to hook up this microphone. Don't ask me to do anything with that camera, because I can't. I don't have the skill set for that. But what I am really good at is to go, I know that person is really good at their job. I'm smart enough to know about every position within the film industry to know whether somebody's good at their job or not. And just putting teams together and honestly just loving on people, which is kind of the weirdest thing, because producers are just not known for that, right? Really? I mean, the stereotype for producers is you're angry and you're mad and you're yelling and you're over budget and you're out of time and you're all those things. And all those things are true. I'm constantly out of money and I'm constantly out of time and all those things. but it's just how you respond in those moments. And so that's kind of how I got started. And so getting out of college, you remember the Left Behind series, the big book series written by Jerry Jenkins, this big end times book series that came out. It sold for 80 million copies, something crazy like that. And it was right kind of in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s when this book came out. Well, Jerry Jenkins, one of the authors, I literally hand wrote this guy a letter, like a fan letter. And again, this guy was a huge author, and he wrote me back. And I literally was just like, hey, I'm a recent film grad. If these books ever get made into a movie, I want to be a part. Of course, I said I was a producer. And at that point, I definitely was not a producer. But oddly enough, he wrote me back and he goes, well, oddly enough, these books are being made into movies. And my son, Dallas Jenkins, creator of The Chosen, is a part of that company that's helping turn these into movies. Well, the movies did not turn out the way they wanted. And Dallas and his dad kind of parted ways with that whole thing. But what it did do is it established a relationship between Dallas and I. Yeah. About a year later, Dallas, he and I stayed in touch, and he goes, hey, I'm about to direct my first short film. I've already got a producer attached, but if you want to just come be a part of it, I'm shooting it in LA. And I literally flew myself to LA as an unpaid PA, and a PA is a production assistant, basically the lowest rung in the film world, right? They are the go get my coffee, clean up the trash type people, right? And again, those things need to be done, and coffee is really important. So I'm not saying that those are not important jobs. And so I literally, again, I slept on his hotel room floor out in California. I had a buddy that lived in California. And so I started as an unpaid PA. And by the end of that short film, I was a co-producer on it. And that was just me kind of stepping up and doing whatever. Like, I can help. I know how to do that. Oh, I can do this thing or whatever it was. And again, it was that same thing, just my knowledge base and the connections, the very few connections I had in my early 20s to help that happen. And that is what established the relationship between Dallas and I. So we went from that short film, we did one more short film, and then we did our first feature. And it was a feature called Midnight Clear. We shot it in and around Roanoke, South Lake, Grapevine. I mean, we shot at Whitechapel Church. We shot in downtown Roanoke, and this was 2005 or so. And that was my first major feature film and Dallas's first directing film. Oddly enough, from 2005 until The Chosen, Dallas and I didn't work together again. But it's all about relationships, right? So you just stay in touch. And I remember in 2017, Dallas calls me up. He goes, hey, I made this short film for my church and somebody wants to crowdfund it. And I think he and I at the same time both kind of said, crowdfunding never works. Don't do that. Like, that's the worst idea in the world. And honestly, as the company, as Out of Order Studios that we had started just previously a few years, we were just like, do we really want to do a Jesus show? I mean, like, how many Jesus shows do you need to do, and how bad is it going to be?
Right.
So that was the mentality that we kind of walked into that. Because honestly, nothing makes me more angry than crappy Christian films. Nothing. Like, I hate crappy, just horrible. Let's put a dove on his shoulder and backlight him really horrible, and and then he'll do his thing, and God will save him, and it'll be wonderful. Like, that's not how life works, right?
Yeah.
And so we almost said no to The Chosen just because we're like, Jesus show, like, I don't know, and crowdfunding, that ain't going to work. We're just going to waste our time. But again, my relationship with Dallas was so great. So I finally read the script, and I went to my business partner, Chris June, and I said, hey, man, this is way different. This is not what I expected to read. I mean, you don't even meet Jesus till the end of episode 1. And what Chris and I do as producers is we love to just create environments. So that's what we did, is we stepped up with Dallas and we helped create an environment. And obviously we're glad we said yes to The Chosen.
So when you're doing that, for anybody, like for the non-producers of the world, right? So like, you're reading the script and you're envisioning what's going on in this film, right? And so what in that script set out that was different than another corny Christian?
Well, you don't. Yeah. Well, and again, if you've watched The Chosen, you know that, and you hate to say it, but we take creative liberties, right? And the biggest thing that is said by the writers and by Dallas in the creation of it is, if it's not straight out of the Bible, which there are people that are, one of their favorite things is they're watching the show and then all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute. You're like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. There's the Bible. You just quoted the Bible. I didn't see it coming, but you just quoted something that's a direct lift from the Bible, which most Jesus projects over the years, I would say 90%, if not more, it is, we like to say, red letter to red letter. It's just, if Jesus said it, we're going to go shoot a scene of what Jesus said in red letter, in verbatim, and then we're just going to jump to the next scene in the Bible, chapter 2. John chapter 2.
Real transition.
And it's just, okay, and then it's in, and obviously even everybody knows that scriptures are a lot of times, they're not in order, they're not in sequential order, and they kind of jump around and they kind of pick their things and stuff like that. And so with The Chosen, like I said, we read this first one, and it was just diving into the lives of the disciples and diving into the lives of Mary Magdalene and where she was. And everything that we do is based based on the reality, right? We know things about Mary Magdalene. We know things about Simon Peter. We know things that are in Scripture, and then we just kind of say, okay, well, and we do a ton of research, right? We consult with biblical scholars, historical scholars, all these different types of people to kind of basically ask the question: is it plausible? Is it plausible for Simon Peter as a fisherman in the first century Israel to do X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
Well, it's very plausible, right? And so versus we're not saying things that are not plausible or just completely not biblical. Like we're not having Simon overthrow the kingdom and do his thing, right? Simon's still Simon and Andrew's still Andrew, and and then there's just all these creative liberties and just making it as personal as possible, and I think the character of Matthew is probably the best example of something that became very, very personal to a lot of people. Obviously, autism and kids and people on the spectrum has been a big thing over the years. And Dallas, one of his daughters, is on the spectrum. And so Dallas, in writing Matthew, kind of goes, okay, well, what would that look like? A established Jew that intentionally goes against his people.
Yeah.
But if you do talk to a lot of people,
passed away from his parents.
yeah, I mean, all through. But if you do think about people on the spectrum, they're very black and white, right? It's just like, well, this is right and this is wrong. And so if you think
really relate well to those people, by the way.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so you look at Matthew and you look at that and go, okay, well, wait a minute, we're an oppressed people as the Jewish people. Why would I not go do something that I can make a lot of money at and not be oppressed?
Right.
Now, obviously, he didn't think about some of the other things, which obviously we walked through all those things. And so there's just all these, well, would it be plausible for somebody like Matthew to be on the spectrum? Well, yeah, that's pretty plausible. And then people just started seeing themselves in these characters, which is what the Bible's for. I mean, there's a big part of what the Bible is there for is that, that Jesus experienced everything that we did. He went through things, he experienced things, and he saw things, but he still was a perfect man. And so that was kind of one of the big directions that was taken with the show, is to kind of go, is it plausible to have these things? And then you just start falling in love with these characters and just kind of continue to go. So
I love that, because I mean, just of recent, we were talking, I listened to a talk yesterday about paring down your exact client profile. Basically, like even in the movie industry, like who are we trying to talk to right now, right? But what I really like to break down to this was not just demographic, right? Of they live here. It's a male Texas-based audience that's conservative, Christian, whatever. It's not just that. It was diving into the psychographic, the emotion of the person, and that's what I feel like you're talking about when you're talking to deal on the spectrum. You're hitting way. That's a super niche person.
But and I'm sure this applies in a lot of business. If you talk to the one, you're amazed that you're actually talking to the many.
Yeah.
Right. And if you really just focus in on that one, and and I'm sure you experience this with just client relationships, where you do have to make it personal with every one of them. But I'm sure you're amazed by the crossover of going, well, that guy and that gal are very, very different. But when I ask them the one-on-one questions, it's the same questions, but now you're applying it to it. And obviously that's what we've done with The Chosen, is we've just said, okay, let's just make it as personal as possible and take our own experiences. Like another great example, and I travel a lot with my job, and a lot of people do, right? And especially, husbands that are traveling for work or doing whatever they do. Well, also in season 1 of The Chosen, there's this moment when Jesus goes to Simon Peter's wife, when he's called Simon Peter to go with him and travel. And Simon Peter's wife, Eve, is sitting there and she's going, I have a sick mom at home and you're going to leave and we're homeless and we don't know what are you talking about? You're leaving. And Jesus goes to her and he looks her in the eyes and he goes, I see you. And for, I mean, there wasn't a dry male eye, right? There just isn't, because, and again, for me personally, so I'll just speak for me personally, but again, I know that me speaking personally, I'm going to speak for a lot of men right now. And again, I think this can apply for women too that travel, but for men, it's that whole, I do what I do to take care of you.
Yeah.
And when you're talking to your wife and your children. But then also in doing what I do, I can't be there for you sometimes, right? And especially with work, and it is just this battle within you. But then also, what is your wife going through in those moments? And so that moment, and Dallas did this because he experiences this with his own family. He wrote this thing where Jesus goes, you know what, daughter, wife, mother, I see you. Don't pretend for a second that I don't see you. And those are the moments that just, even us as filmmakers, like we just get crushed. Like we're all just bawling on set, watching it, and it comes out on the screen and we're watching it and crying. And those are the moments that I think really has made The Chosen just connect to people on a different level. That Jesus does see us, all of us, right? But in that moment, he's talking to a wife and a mother and a daughter and all those things. And so So that's just, those are the things that I just think that the show continues to do. It's something that I personally say it all the time, but I know it applies to the entire cast and crew is, Lord, don't let us screw this up.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing something big here and you're touching a lot of lives and you're impacting a lot of people. And you're presenting the gospel in a unique way, not in a new way, because obviously there's nothing new under the sun,
right.
But it is, at the end of the day, it is entertainment. We're trying to entertain people. We want people to come back and enjoy themselves and laugh and cry and do all those things. And we're shooting the season right now, like the season, like the one that everybody. When we started this show, call it season 2 or so, when we realized the show was going to take off, I remember we were all sitting around one day and talking. We're like, wait a minute, if this keeps going, we have to do the crucifixion.
Yeah, I was going to say that's it.
That's the one, right? And and then we always kind of laugh and go, but Sunday's coming, right? That whole saying about yes, he died on the cross, but Sunday's coming. And so we're in that the crucifixion season, and we're shooting that as we speak. And it already has been the quietest the set's ever been. And we'll have upwards of 1,000 people on set sometimes, between actors and extras and crew and all these things. And you can hear a pin drop sometimes with some of the scenes that we're shooting already. But Sunday's coming, because we're shooting one more season that shows obviously when he rises from the dead and does all that. So
that's why I loved it.
Yeah.
But go back to this. We started talking about this before the show just a little bit, but you mentioned this, and I'm glad you brought that up. Is where Jesus comes and says, "I see you," because a lot of guys, I struggle with this. Like, our job, we're action takers. We're going to fix problems.
Yep.
And yes, we got to be listeners and be empathetic towards our wives, our families.
Trying to be better every day. Right. Trying to be better every day.
Sanctification process. Right?
Yes, preach.
But talk about that, where man, I've confessed this to my small groups, where like I'm taking these risks and you don't know everything, right? And so you have to depend on your faith to do this. But like, the biggest fear with a lot of guys, and we talk about this with a lot of clients and even people that are not, we just have a lot of great conversations with, that have been explosive in their business or their profession, where their biggest fear is to screw it all up. Or even there's like self-sabotage behavior where they'll just intentionally screw it up.
Right.
Right. But like, now, we as believers don't want that, obviously, but like, talk to that a little bit going in, especially like I have experience through the professional sports aspect of this, where I have screwed it up and I got millions of eyes on me telling me I've screwed it up.
Yep, exactly.
Including YouTube videos telling me that I'm going to die.
Right. Years later, still going, man, what the hell did he do here? Yeah.
And I mean, but from your point of view, when you have so many critics and all these things, and it can feel like you're screwing it up, even when it's being super successful.
Right.
I don't know. Hit on that. What comes to your head?
Well, I mean, I think there's so many layers to that, because it's as men, I agree with that, right? And there's a certain amount of men out there that there's this desire, at least if not in actuality, of high success, right, and achieving things. And God put that in us, right? We're supposed to go out and conquer and do things, right? And it's obviously it's different for everybody, and there's different levels of that. But at the end of the day, that's what God did create us to do. But there is a balance to that as well. He also called us to be husbands. He called us to be fathers. He called us to be involved in our communities. He called us to be involved in our church, all those different things that he's also called us to do. So what is that balance? And it is something that we struggled with for years. I mean, if anything, I can tell you straight up that there were times early in my career or my life, my wife just looked at me and she goes, I didn't sign up for this. It's not what I signed up for. I didn't sign up for you to be on the road and doing things and it's cool when we meet, right? That, oh, he's a filmmaker. Like, who is this guy? Like, small town Texas producer, like, Mr. Creative, Mr. Business, and all these things. And that's all fun and dandy until, wait a minute, how are we paying our bills next week?
Yeah.
And praise God, we've never been in a place on a financial state where God hasn't provided. He always has. But, we can get into that. That's tithing and that's being faithful and all those different things. But let's not pretend that it wasn't difficult to get there or literally coming down to the last moment. And so I think finding those balances, and it's interesting, even the word balance continued to bother me, right? Because that's what you kind of hear all the time. Like, you got to find balance. You got to find balance between work and family and this and that. And it's funny, our pastor, Pastor Little out there, he wrote a book, and it was all about, it wasn't about balance, but what he says is you have to look at the seasons. And if anything, that's a biblical thing. There is a season that you're going to be a little bit busier, right? And there's going to be a season where I can go and spend every day and coach every game and be at every event and take my wife out on a daily basis if I wanted to, all those things. And there's going to be seasons for that. And so then you just have to be able to go, look, I have to look at the seasons. And then you have to prioritize as well. Obviously, when kids are going through certain things, I'm going to prioritize being at my son's graduation. Yeah. I'm going to prioritize to be at certain things, even if that's a financial hit to me. If I'm out of town, I can't tell you how many times where it's like, there's something big going on at home. I'm getting on a plane. I'm going home for the night, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah. Right. And so you just have to find those balances. And again, I hate to say balance, but I say find those seasons, because there's going to be times when you're building a business. Well, if you're building a business, hopefully you've sat down with your spouse and said, it's going to be a little rough here for a little while. So let's make sure that we go into this together. And that's wisdom that honestly, older guys that have been through it, that we need to be able to talk to the younger guys and go, hey, if you're starting a business, make sure you sit down and have conversations with your wife, versus it's all cool and it's fun. And, you're going to work normal hours and all this stuff. And so those are the kinds of things, is finding those seasons and finding those times to find where that balance is, because I think that's what gets a lot of men is, and again, we've all had this argument. Well, baby, I'm doing it for you. I'm leaving and working all these hours. I'm doing it for you, and I'm doing it for the kids. And then they say, well, I want you home. And you're like, well, if I come home, then I can't provide what I know you enjoy, and not just enjoy, but even the basic necessities, right? We got to have a roof over our head. We got to pay for things. We got to do all these things. And so there's just that weird thing but I just think that comes back to communication and having those conversations, because it also applies to business too. I mean, at work all the time, we tell everybody, and this is not normal in our industry, we say, look, family is first, period. And I can't tell you the surprise on people's faces when we find out that, again, any given crew member, they're having a problem at home. If they have a sick kid, they have something, and we go up to them and go, you need to go home. They're like, no, don't fire me. I'll be fine. I'll get a sitter. I'll do it. I'm like, whoa, like we're fired. Yeah. We're like, no, you go home and take care of your family. And the countenance on people, and again, especially in our industry, but I think it would apply to many industries. It is work, go. I don't care about it. You deal with your stuff on your time. This is my time. You need to be here. Right. But we found, and again, there's always exceptions on what we can and can't do, but we found the more that you sacrifice for others, the more they're going to turn around and sacrifice for you. Yeah. Because that same one that I sent home for a day or two to just go be with their little boy that was sick in bed, just to be there, and I'm talking mom or dad, right? Just to be there. When they come back to work, the rejuvenation, the commitment, the determination to continue to do more and work harder is exponentially more, versus I've suffered for a week because I knew my kid was at home sick and I couldn't be there with them. Yeah. And so it made me suffer as a parent, made my child suffer, because all they want is their dad, all they want is their mom, all they want is a parent to be there to hold them. And so it's just been amazing to find that. But again, that's the seasons of it, right? But then you start doing that, and then other people are doing it. Like, oh, no, let them go home. I'll stay. I'll pick up the slack. I'll do these kinds of things. So you start creating these environments where that type of stuff thrives. And at least it makes things a little bit more palatable, because obviously, especially what we do, we like to say, look, what we do is hard. It's not easy making movies. Come to set, come experience some of our stuff. People all think it's the red carpets and the fun and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And that is probably less than 1% of what we actually do. Yeah. And people they're pretty miserable when they come in and visit sometimes. They love to come to set, and we love people, seeing things. But, we shoot in Texas in summertime, outside all the time. And we're about to shoot from July through September outside, in Midlothian, Texas, baby. Come on. Okay. And so people are like, this is miserable. This is actually pretty miserable, right? Yeah, so for Jesus. Yeah. So balance means that there is this thing, versus no, there's seasons, and there's seasons where it's going to be this. But then you also, because and again, that's a biblical thing, right? So let's talk to God about it, right? He goes, there's going to be a season to this and that, and all those different things. And so if you find that, it actually creates balance without the intentionality of that focus on balance. Yeah, no, it's true. I think, you can put a lot into that. It's like, when the getting's good, get it. And so, meaning like if God is showing you opportunity right now, what are you doing? Go, right. Go, yes. Go. And yes, be there for you, have your non-negotiables, like, graduation or other pieces. But, if you're in go mode, if your opportunity is presenting yourself and you're like, I'm going to go early. I'm going home. Yeah, a little tired today. Go watch another season of The Office, and which I love, but I'm like, I'm also, if opportunity is abundant right now, right. It's on me to go get it. That's right. And that's right. So,
One of the best messages I ever heard was like, did God create this chair? No, he made the materials.
Yeah, yeah.
And on us to create.
And he gave somebody the brain to create that chair.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's like, settle down, go get to work.
That's right.
And
That's right.
so I tell you what I do appreciate. I'm losing my thought here for a second, but you were right before your seasons. What was that comment you had just said right before seasons? You said something
about balance and seasons.
Balance, right before that.
Rewind the tape.
You can tell this is a live.
That's right. That's the best kind, man.
Loses me.
Oh, it'll come back to you. It'll come back.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah. And you'll be like mid-sentence. You're like, that's what it was. That's what it was. Well, it's funny. You were talking about rule sets, and that was something that my wife and I, again, praise God for this, that we set rules in place, because when I travel so much, we put a 2-week rule in place.
Okay.
We never go more than 2 weeks without seeing each other.
Nice.
And again, that goes back to that. Are you going to sacrifice for it?
Yeah.
Are you coming to me? Am I coming home to you? Like, are you bringing the kids? And and all those things. And not to say that we hit it 100%. There may have been 2 weeks and 3 days, or maybe even 3 weeks here or there. But for over 20 years now, that's been the rule. And I can't tell you the faces that I get when we would present those kind of rules to people, like young people, when we talk to them about this. And they're just like, oh, I guess that kind of makes sense, right? But again, that's just one of those things where you have to make the sacrifices to take care of what's right. But then there's also a time where my wife's like, it's time for you to go back to work. Like, where you've been home too long, right? It's time to go, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that we're out of money, which we could be, because our industry just ebbs and flows and all that sort of thing. But it's just like, but she even tells me sometimes, she goes, I can tell when you're not active. And it's so funny because we're seeing this in my son right now, that men have an innate desire to work, to do things. And whether that's physical labor or just whatever the cause that you do, the job that you have, whatever that is. And she just tells me, she goes, I can tell you need to go. It's time for you to get out of here, because she can see that. And it's so funny. So my son is 19 now and just got back from his first year of college. And, of course, he's got a summer job. He's got all the different things, but he had this little minor surgery. So he was kind of, in bed for a couple of weeks. And my wife is like, that boy needs to go. Like, he just kind of walks around the house and bumps into walls and just is like, he just needs. And it was so funny because I took him out in the yard and we were trimming trees and we were doing all these different things. And it was just like, you could see this invigoration in him. Now, he didn't love being out and moving rocks and trimming trees and doing all those things, even though he loves manly things. And so, of course, everybody complains about manual labor in general, but it was just one of those things you could see him just kind of come alive with purpose, even though it was that short period of time of, half a day's work sort of thing. And so I think that is something, that there is this desire to get out there and do things. But again, to also go, okay, what is that balance, that seasonal thing? Because I think you're absolutely right. There are times where, like I said, early in my career, I remember there was this 1.5-year span where I did like 4 or 5 movies just back to back to back. Mm-hmm. Like, it was literally like, get home from Kentucky, go to Tennessee, get back from Tennessee, go to North Carolina, get back from North Carolina, and go to Oklahoma. Like, it was just back to back to back. But that was kind of the beginning of my career, where people were going, Chad, we want you. We want you, not anybody else. We want you. We've heard how you do it, what you do, and all these things. And that's what we want on our show. So please come do that here. Or there were my own movies that I was developing, and they would go into production. And so my wife and I always look back, because when that thing started, my daughter was like 4 weeks old. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, we all look at each other and we're like, wait, you're going to leave when your daughter's 4 weeks old, like barely born, like and you have a 3-year-old, almost 4-year-old son at home running around, tearing up the house. And I remember sitting with my wife, and I looked at her and I said, this is your decision, not mine. Yeah. I said, I'm not making this call. I refuse to be the one that goes, right, see you later. I'm going to go on the road and, and do all that sort of thing. But it was that time where even my wife is smart enough to go, iron's hot. Yeah. Go, and we'll figure it out. And yes, there was moments and there were times where she said, I didn't sign up for this and all that sort of thing. But of course, you look back and you go, all right, well, God was obviously kind of guiding our steps and figuring those things out and establishing, the career and those kinds of things.
It's huge. I mean, I was telling somebody the other day, we have a 5-year-old boy, and like, the job is to exhaust him. And they'll like run all day long.
There, come back. Now go get it.
Yeah. And this dude hangs, that's my boy. Right? But this dude will do that all day, and he won't go to, like, he can be wide awake. This, we're like explosive awake. And then you crawl into bed and all of a sudden he's out.
Yeah. You turn the light switch off and you go sit on the bed and he's already gone. Yeah.
You're like, what the heck? Well, I mean, legit, like, okay. There's a lot of grown boys out there, but if you're supposed to be a man, you're supposed to be getting things done.
That's right.
And so that's me too, where like I still very much have the 5-year-old boy mentality where okay, I'm older and hurt a little more now, but I need to exhaust myself and somewhere productive, because if I don't idle hands, I'm going to exhaust it in a misproductive or non-productive or horrible place.
That's right.
And like you reminded me of the book Captivating. John Eldridge and his wife wrote that, co-wrote that together. And I didn't read the book. Megan wrote the book. She sent me a one section, one picture snapshot of sending my phone. But in it, he talked about a brief on like why women were women, why men were men, and it was basically like there's a reason women have been painted and photographed and drawn over and over and over and over again in their beauty, right? But a large part is because a man half naked under the sheets on photo looks ridiculous, right?
And we're not pretty ugly. We're not pretty naked. It's not a good thing.
Well, and so in that he was describing it, he goes, inherently, you look at that picture and you see a guy lying on the couch, you get upset because if we're made in the image of God, a working man portraying that is communicating to everybody around him that he is for you, that God is for you, God is working, he's pursuing you, he's trying to get things done for you, for your favor, right?
Yeah. And
a man who's laying on the couch while you're screaming, get a job and get to work is because that guy is communicating that he is not for you and that he's not coming after you and that you're not worth it.
And so good.
And I was like, and she wrote ouch when she said it, right? And I was like, well, I got to get back to work, babe. So I'm like, I'm out.
You're like, I didn't read that because I was working so hard. I didn't even see that until the end of the day because I was so focused on work.
but it's true,
right?
And so I think especially for young men listening to this, I like, man, time and time again, I keep coming back to the laborers are few, right? The harvest is plentiful, but labors, and it applies to so much. We're like basically back to the mindset. Like if you're looking for it, you find it. He's given, if you've taken and adopted those eyes and ears, you're going to see and hear those things. And so it's powerful because don't be the guy on the couch. Don't be the lazy guy. Yes, there's a time to sleep, but like once you're done, get up.
Well, and again, I think my son is the prime example of that right now. What I'm seeing, he's becoming a young man, right? He's getting out there in college and jobs and talking about all these things, and it is so. It was amazing how obvious it was to my wife and I that we just saw this desire, and I don't even know if he would consciously know it, but he does, right? And it's just that desire to do things. But again, that kind of goes back to there's so many scriptures about that, about idle hands, about a workman is worth his wages, about a man that doesn't work, he don't eat. Like the list goes on, and God kind of going, you picking up what I'm laying down here? Like I'm trying to tell you boys to listen up and do these things, right? And so again, it goes back to that whole thing of finding those times and figuring those things out as men, because again, we're going to screw it up. That's just kind of what we do as well. But that's why we have amazing women that tell us what to do. So.
Oh, and recovery is usually decent too. Dude, we'll go into that if you don't mind. What's something that explosive that happened? Obviously, the whole Chosen series was explosive, but like, what's something that has been explosive in your life that either maybe you fell into by accident that you knew was like an important lesson? You're like, can't believe that happened, right? That something led in relationships. Sounds like that was part of it, but like either a major mistake or a major action that you took that ended up leading to to a big hockey stick type moment.
Yeah. Well, the first one that comes to mind is honestly taking on a business partner. In the independent film world. And I remember when we did this, and my wife says she still gets comments from wives today that are in the industry like, wait, you have a partner? Like, that's not what you do in this business. Like, you don't have partners, right? Especially in the independent film space, right? If you're at a studio or in Hollywood or part of a big company, obviously that's a little bit different. But in the independent side, like, you don't do that, right? Like, we scrape and claw to get by with what we need. Now we got to be responsible for somebody else. And so, but that was a big moment for us. So my business partner, a guy by the name of Chris June, he's a Texan and he's back now. But he did live in LA for over 20 years. Out of high school, he joined the Navy, was Navy, and then got out, and then kind of jumped into the studio system fairly quickly and started working at Sony Pictures. And he was there, helped set up Sony Pictures Animation, and so worked in high-end visual effects and animation. Well, fast forward 20 years, and our career started about the same time. And so I had been doing a lot of these independent films, right? So that I'd mentioned those. And Chris saw one of my films, a Western that I did called The Redemption of Henry Myers. And he was helping basically kind of do like a local grassroots theatrical run, right? And that happens a lot just with independent films. You kind of get other people involved in the faith space, you get churches involved and stuff like that, right? And it's not as big as it was, but I would say probably about 10 years ago, that was a big thing that churches were doing and whatnot. And so Chris had seen this movie of mine and was helping kind of locally help bring it and put it in theaters. Well, oddly enough, various things happened and it didn't go to theaters. And the company that was doing it didn't tell him, hey, we're not putting this in theaters. It's going because I think we got a Hallmark deal or something out of it. And so he wasn't told that was what was happening. So he was still preparing to put this movie into theaters and nobody was communicating with him. So he started messaging like Facebook and some of the other social media platforms, and nobody was responding. I saw it, and I just kind of jumped in. Well, long story short, there is we ended up meeting and connecting. I was out in LA. We had dinner together, and just all these kind of weird things happened. And I'm just like, well, first of all, you're this big studio guy, right? And producing these $100 million, $120 million movies for the studio, and I'm a little independent guy over here that makes a couple $1 million movies, and that sort of thing. But what we found is that all those mentalities, everything that a lot of the stuff that we've already talked about, he had those same mentalities and those same goals and desires. He was a believer in Hollywood, which obviously is pretty rare. But the way he treated people and the way that he run things, it was very similar, but our backgrounds were very, very different. So it's like you have this little independent mindset and then the studio mindset, and those are very, very different. And our skill sets are very different. Like we couldn't be, even though we're both producers, like our skill sets are very, very different. But again, it also kind of talks to how the broadness of what our industry is and how big and how many people it takes to do that. Well, within 6 months of when we met, he calls me up one day, and goes, hey man, I'm moving to Texas. And I'm like, well, too soon, man. Like, we're not that close yet. Like, I don't need you to be my neighbor or not, and we joked about, doing stuff, but we didn't talk about business partners or anything like that. And he goes, no, I'm from Texas originally. He was from El Paso and his mom was living here in Fort Worth. And he goes, yeah, I got to get out of Hollywood, man. I got 2 young kids. His kids are pretty close to the same age as my kids. And he's like, I got to get out of Hollywood and I'm moving to Texas. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't have a job. I've sold my house. I haven't bought a house, like all these different things, which is actually where the title of our company comes from, Out of Order Studios. His wife made a comment as they literally were driving from LA to Texas of everything we're doing is out of the world's order.
Yeah.
You don't quit your job until you have a job. You don't sell your house until you have a house. You don't leave school until you know what school you're going to, because they went from public school into homeschooling their kids. So all these things. So she kind of jokes, she's like, everything we're doing is completely out of order, but I have such a peace about it because we know we're following God's guidance on this. And so literally Chris called me, he goes, hey man, if we ever start a company, we're calling it Out of Order Studios. And here we have Out of Order Studios over 10 years later. But that was kind of a big step of taking on a business partner, right? Because now all of a sudden it's like, well, we're not just a couple of independent, scrappy guys. We have office things, and now we have multiple employees. We have all these different things. So that was a huge step for us. And even my wife was just like, golly, I don't know about that, right? Because again, because we operate in this independent world, and this, right? Investment dollars are not an easy thing to find, right? And I always say, look, not
in that world,
well, and it's funny because I say I live in Texas. If I was doing oil and gas or real estate, easy breezy, because that's what everybody does. But it's just a lot, or tech or something like that. But man, Hollywood is fantasy land to people. Yeah. What's the widget again? Like, what is it? You're not selling this. I need to see this. What's this, right? It doesn't exist in our world, but yet it's a $20 billion a year industry, right? Like, it's all these things. So it's getting a little better and all those things. So those were the kinds of things that in starting a business, like, well, how do we raise money? How do we raise capital? How do we find projects? How do we do these things? And sometimes it's just bootstrapping it and scrappy and doing it. And sometimes it's weird stories like Dallas calling me up saying, hey, I want to crowdfund this thing and it'll never work. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing in the last decade or so of just figuring that out. But something Chris and I decided very early on, and we say it still to today, is that if you were Chris, I look at Chris and I go, Chris, I know that you have my best interest and my family's best interest as a business partner. And I want you to know that I think about you and I think about your family and I think about your children. I think about your mortgage and I think about those things. And if we're doing that, it's kind of like a marriage, right? At the end of the day, if you're focused on yourself, you're not going to get very far. But in marriage, if you're going, well, I'm trying to do everything I can to fulfill everything in my wife that she needs. I need her to feel secure and loved and seen and all those different things, and vice versa from her. And if she's doing that for me and I'm doing that for her, versus her sitting there going, what about me? Me. And I'm sitting here going, well, what about me? You know? And so that was something that Chris and I, and that's what we tell people when they ask, like, what the heck are you taking on a business partner for in the independent space? And I'm like, well, because I know that Chris is going to do everything. Yeah. He'll do everything. And I'll do the same for him. And that's what's been a huge thing for us. And we've been very, very blessed, obviously, in the last decade or so that we've been partners.
Man, I appreciate that, because this actually ties into the thought that I forgot about earlier.
I know. There it is.
So, you know, as it comes to basically, you come into the partnerships like this, or it's not marriage, husband and wife, but it's a marriage of sorts, right? And it's like finding partners. And partnership that's actually been a key theme that God has communicated to me just since Q4 last year. Basically, this is what he was telling me. He goes, I know you can go 10x under your own power. I know you have the effort, you have the work, you have the will, all of that. Like, and even that's rare in this world. Okay. For all the lazy guys sitting on the couch, okay?
But it's going to keep coming up.
I guess it just drives me nuts.
That's a podcast in itself. Lazy guy on the couch. Lazy. Let's just talk about it.
Well, it's a theme right now we're trying to hire, and people can't even do research on one website. And you're just like, what the heck?
Yeah.
But so like, okay, it was this. Like, I know you can do this, all right? Then I'm going to hook you up with mentors and with teachers who can amplify this even more.
Yep.
Basically equip you for this amplification. All right. So I just took you from 10 to 50x. And what basically was told me is like, all right, now I need you to find partners. And so the partners and the themes I started getting, so it's like, it's even partners like employees. That's, I consider that partner.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
We're all in this together. Right.
Yep. And so, but it's partners all around. And because that's when I'll show you exponential.
Right.
And that's the hockey stick, basically. And I'm like, I'm so geeked out, right? But what I see in what you're talking about is like, when you get those partnerships or those relationships and like you legit invest in those to the people who are similar, not to say exactly like you, but the ones that are the few.
Yep.
And not the lazy, because I've swung and a miss on those people and I've struggled with, you battle with like the money that you just handed this person, just be lazy on the job.
Jeez.
But the people that really want to give themselves, and it becomes infectious,
right,
where these people become family members.
Yep.
Legit family. And I've seen even my own mindset shift, not just with my time and talent, because where that's easy to give your time and talent a lot of times, right? But your treasure, where your heart lies, where your treasure lies, your heart lies also. So like where your money is sitting, you're watching.
Yep.
And so I've seen this even in recent. I was just telling you, I paid a big bill 2 days ago. We're starting this new partnership with somebody else, and I told this is a lady in Italy, and I'm telling her, I'm like, listen, we're friends now, officially.
Right.
So that means my wife and I are coming to Italy and we're going to hang out.
I'm sorry. Yeah, but I have to.
Yeah. So just so you know, we're in this. So, and it was just kind of my own setting a tone for her that like, we're engaging this agreement together. So my heart, you have a piece of my heart right now.
Right.
And because I've worked so hard for this to earn it for myself and my family and to provide and give and be part of my vision. Right.
Yep.
And, but I've seen it become so powerful for when somebody, and I'll give you a easiest practical example. It doesn't just have to be like this big grand thing, but Mackenzie, our ops director, she got into a car accident. It was like a month or more ago, and so I'm like, she's a critical piece of our business, and I know like her down is we have to replace hard. But what was wild, she texted me, said, just got into a wreck. I'm not going to make it by 9. Just so you know, I'll keep you updated on what's going on. Right. And I'm like, all right. I knew in my head, I was like, all right, I'm going to help her out with whatever she needs.
Of course.
And okay, get the thing back. Well, it's going to take like 2 weeks to fix the car or whatever. I'm like, okay, how much is the rental? Yeah. And well, it's this and this is, you can feel, I'm like, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
And she wasn't even expecting, she was she was thinking, well, she has no full expectation of anybody helping her. She's being independent, doing her thing.
Right.
And I'm like,
which is the type of people you want. You don't need my help.
Givers, right?
Yeah.
But then when you give, I mean, this girl is at the wreck place, the collision center, firing off emails, taking care of business, like not dropping a beat, basically.
Never happened. Yeah.
And so what do you think that does? And so to me, as the boss, technically, of somebody who is willing to do that, to go to that extent and not use it as an excuse to get out of work. Right. That's the take my money. I'm happy to give.
Gladly.
Oh my God, right?
I'll pay double.
Yeah. And I guess my whole point of bringing that up is there's us as leaders in our organizations, sacrificing yourself. And that's time, talent, treasure. That's all of you, right? And so sacrifice yourself. But that's also, I think of so many times, just like you went out as an unpaid production assistant, you took a chance and invested your own into this, made an excellent effort. Somebody else saw that value, and you led from the position you were sitting in.
Right.
And that's what I think of too, is how many people sit in a sub position or what they view as a sub position of leadership, and they let that be an excuse for their own lack of action.
Yeah.
And so anyways, that's what you reminded me of, is this powerful place that you can lead from whatever spot got you.
That's right. Well, and I think as leaders, one of the best things that you can do is empower your people to lead.
Yes.
Right. I mean, there are so many people. And again, this goes back to that statement you and I were both saying, like, I just want to surround people that are smarter than me.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I just look at somebody else and go, you're way better at that than I am. I can do it. And I'm the boss and it's my responsibility. Right. And I take that responsibility and I take it very seriously. And it's a small little lesson. Actually, I learned this from Dallas Jenkins. As a leader, everything's your fault.
Yeah.
Everything. Yeah. And if you have that mentality, regardless of whether it actually is your fault, right? And as the boss, you can go address it and talk about it or fire or hire or do whatever you need to later. But in the moment, it's that thing of I'm taking responsibility for this and I'm going to help it, fix it, do it, be a part of it, whatever it is. And that's a great example, is when she had this moment, she as a leader was going, not the problem. I'm doing my work. I'm getting it done, because as a leader in her position, she was doing those things. And you as a leader is going, yeah, I mean, I'm going to take care of this piece. And not that it's your fault, but you were there to just go, we're in this together, right? We're a team, we're a family, we're doing these things together. And again, that goes back to my partnership with Chris, as I look at that, and it's just, but there are so many times where it's just so obvious, like, that's you, dude. Like, that is you. Like, you are way better at that. That is your space and this is my space. And we figure those things out. But then it's also that support, right? It kind of goes back to that story of like, send them home. Like, there are times, right? But there are times where it's like, nope, we got to work. And how do we get through this together? How do we get through this wreck? Because it's not always a car wreck, but there's always wrecks going on. And how do you get how do you get through that as a team together, and as a family, and doing those things? And that's the times where they're going to turn around and she's going to give more blood, sweat, and tears, and you're going to give more blood, sweat, and tears. Because in that moment where it could have just been, well, she's going to be gone for a couple of days and we may not see her and this and that, you both kind of stepped up and both did your things. And that's the thing, is she was sacrificing for you, because it's been completely reasonable for her to go, not coming in today.
Right.
Got in a wreck. I'm not sure how I feel. The car, this, I've got to take care of insurance, all these different things, right? She could have, in that moment, and you probably would have been like, oh, of course, oh my gosh, like, I would never. Versus when you saw her stepping up, you're like, well, I'm stepping up. It's like, I'm going to do just as much, if not more, And again, that's obviously not exactly what you're saying, but it's that mentality of, hey, we're in this together and let's figure this out. It's so great. Such a great story.
I love it. Well, and that's what leads to people working together for 20 years plus. Mm-hmm. And having deep, like, this is not just a work relationship. This is a real friendship and somebody you care about. Yep. And so I just think that's super powerful. So I appreciate that, man. Do this. Tell me, like, what are you most excited about? What is something big you're working on right now, or guys struggling through that you're trying to execute?
So obviously The Chosen takes up 90% of our time. I mean, it's a massive beast, and we're very, very blessed and very fortunate to be a part of it. We've got a couple of seasons left. Season 5 actually hits Amazon like today or tomorrow, next week or something like that. So we're excited about that. We're shooting season 6, season 7 will be after that. And the relationship between us and The Chosen is interesting, right? Because Dallas is The Chosen. It's his show. It's his baby, right? And we have come on, him and his company has hired our company to produce the show. It's kind of how it works, right? So it's this entity is hiring this entity to do the work. And obviously there's a ton of us that do all this. And so as Out of Order, we're technically a separate thing than The Chosen, and we're actually producing another show for The Chosen, the first spinoff called The Chosen Adventures, which comes out in the fall, which is an animated series.
It's like Forky.
What's that?
Is it like Forky from Disney?
Yes, exactly. Just yeah, exactly. And but something that God really placed on our hearts probably about a year and a half ago is it's kind of that idea of don't forget the dreams that I gave you.
Yeah.
Right. And we've all had them. We've all had those things, early in our careers or even late in our careers where just something gets laid on you. You're just like, I have to do that. I have to do these things, this project, this partnership, this whatever it is. And so something that we've really focused on is kind of two-part. God really led us to start a nonprofit. So we're starting a nonprofit called the Creative Collective. And literally what it is the purpose is to develop people, projects, and educate. That's kind of the big things that we're doing, especially within the faith space. You just see this very much lack of storytelling, right? It's just very weak writing. And what God really just showed us is
that's amazing. You in the background. Weak.
Just horrible. Oh my gosh, I'm so bored.
It's like my 10-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like a 10-year-old. I feel like I'm leading 10-year-olds sometimes too. But what it was just that, and something that's been on our hearts a lot over the years is education within this space, right? And internships for college kids and film camps and different things like that. So the Creative Collective is a big thing that we're really excited about. We're kind of in the process of launching it now and just doing all those things that nonprofits need to do. And then beyond that is actually developing projects too, just internal, basically projects that God has given us over the years. Some of them faith-based and some of them not. Just some of them are just really cool projects. And what we want to do as a company is engage culture. I think a big thing that, I think everything is downstream of media, everything. Politics are downstream. I mean, the influence that Hollywood, and obviously I'm talking about the system of Hollywood and entertainment, and whether that's on your phone or on the big screen or wherever it is, everything is just so influenced by what we see, right? On those phones or obviously on that big movie screen and everywhere in between. And so the types of projects that we want to do are those types of projects that really just kind of impact culture in a positive way. And obviously we're filmmakers. We want to have fun. We want to make stuff that's entertaining and all that. And I think The Chosen is a great example of something that honestly has been really kind of deemed a pretty serious topic, right? Jesus and the Bible and scripture, and it's somber. But I think that's even something that's made The Chosen so great is that, our Jesus laughs. Our Jesus cries. And the funny thing is even though it hasn't been portrayed that way on screen over the years, go read the scriptures and it talks about, I can assure you that when it talks about how Jesus tells the children to come to him, he wasn't a boring dude. Like he wasn't like this, like kids aren't running to him because he's, like,
get over here, kid.
Yeah, he's fun and he's engaging, but he's also imparting wisdom and all these kinds of things. So there is an entertainment aspect to what we do, right, within the faith space. And again, not everything we want to do is within the faith space, but there's at least a respect level there for that sort of thing. So that's kind of what the big things that are coming, the projects that Out of Order is developing and doing outside of The Chosen. And obviously we're probably going to be a part of The Chosen for a very, very long time. But that kind of goes in building the teams, right, and getting more people and more creatives. Because again, me and Chris, we only have the bandwidth for so much, right? Yeah. So we want to raise up other leaders and raise up other producers, which we have some of those people within our team already. And then obviously looking for those kind of divine connections of like, all right, Lord, just lead us to people, find people. And it's been amazing to watch what The Chosen has done. It has brought the people out of the woodworks in Hollywood at the highest level. And I mean, the highest level, kind of going, hey, actually, I kind of dig what you're doing there with The Chosen. I didn't really dig a lot of the other stuff because it's crappy and it's corny and it's all those things. And you look at these people working at the highest level and you're just like, well, of course you're working in Hollywood. God has blessed you with the skill set to work at the highest level. Unfortunately, maybe there's not content that you're super excited about. And so now all of a sudden there's this big shift within Hollywood where, we kind of joked, 2 years ago or more than, probably season 2. So like 5 or 6 years ago, it's like we couldn't get anybody to Hollywood to answer our calls. Hey, we've got this show. It's really cool. It's starting to blow up. And like, Jesus, we're all good. And now all of a sudden, it just in the last year and a half, you have things like House of David, that King of Kings, that animated show that just came out. Obviously, The Chosen is blown up. And now it's just like, hey, what are you doing over there? And we're like, no, we're good now. When you didn't answer our call before. And not that we're doing that, but it's just one of those things where all of a sudden.
That's power move.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I'll have my people call your people. Yeah, that's right.
That's busy man.
Yes. That's right.
What's the guy's name? Uncle Billy?
Uncle Bill, busy man.
A busy man.
So it's just really, really cool to see that there's this culture shift now of but at the end of the day, it's a good show that makes money. So of course Hollywood's going to come answering. They're like, we don't care. We kind of joke and go, look, you don't have to believe in dragons to love Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
You don't have to believe in Jesus to think our show is good.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many non-believers, it is innumerable, the amount of people that we have talked to, been a part of, gotten message from, whatever, going, look, I don't believe in this Jesus stuff, but we just dig your show. Like, it's just we love the characters. We love where you're going with it. Obviously, we're familiar with the Bible stories. I mean, we think they're all fiction. It's just a story anyway, so whatever. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, but because those same people, every now and then you'll get the story of going, it made me open my Bible. I hadn't opened my Bible since I was a kid, or I was in, I went to whatever. And now I'm starting to read the scriptures and dig in and go, wait a minute, is that story actually in the Bible? And we even find ourselves doing that. My wife every now and then and go, wait a minute, did you guys make that up? Or is that Bible? And sometimes it's a little bit of both, but obviously it's all back to scripture. And that's one of our biggest goals with the show, is just to lead people to their Bible. Like, don't take the show as scripture. It is not scripture. It is a TV show with a lot of made up stuff in it. Now, it is accurate as we can make it, biblically speaking. But at the end of the day, what we want people to do is go to their Bibles. And obviously we're excited about that. And we, as Out of Order, we want to continue to make stories like that just kind of get people thinking and talking. And sometimes it's about family, and sometimes it's about the Lord, and sometimes it may be something cool that we're going to blow up and have a fight scene. That's fun too. So,
I like fight scenes.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. We've had a few of those moments on the shows where we're like, hey, can we blow something up today? Is that cool? Can we do that? Like, let's do that. Right?
Randomly.
Like, I like angry Jesus, right? In season 5, where he's flipping tables and whip, and everybody's like, I like that Jesus. Like, yeah, that was a pretty fun day to do all that stuff, and burning and things on fire, and Romans kicking people around, and we've had some good times. So, yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, look, man, I love it. I love what you guys are doing. You and your family, Amanda, all these, you guys just have some pretty amazing things going. And
Thank you.
I was pretty excited to figure out what the heck the Gundersens did all of a sudden after I knew just this family from church, right?
Right.
And just figure out you're doing some pretty explosive things in your guys' life. And so
thanks, man.
Thankful for you guys and what you're doing, how you're leading, and just it's really, really cool to be around you.
Awesome, man. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on, man.
Heck yeah.
Yep.